Every week, I do a segment called Ask Tuck. It is in collaboration with Homeless Entrepreneur. And he sends me 3 questions from his community that I answer about homelessness. Well, I was asked 2 questions this week, and I'm answering one of them right now. The question was, how do you stay healthy during inclement weather like winter? So I have 10 tips for you that will help you be able to prepare for winter weather, whether you have to live outside, whether you're living off grid, or whether you're just a regular prepper. So let's go ahead and get into it. I think the most important thing that you can do is know your climate. When I was in Florida, I knew what the Florida climate was. You can generally go online, you can look up the monthly calendar of what the average temperatures are so you can get an idea of how to prepare for the weather in which you are about to be outside in. You should always know your weather, you should always know your climate. And another good resource is also is called Ryan Hall, y'all. And that's where I get most of my weather, because he lets you know the long-term weather patterns that are happening, and you can just pay attention to your section of the country. So this is very important that you understand and know your climate. Number 2 is natural medicine. You want to be able to find some sort of natural medicine that works for you. One of the things that's worked for me for many years and has helped me with my immune system is through a company called doTERRA. They do therapeutic grade essential oils. I even use them for cooking, but I use their flagship ointment. It's called On Guard. It has like cinnamon and eucalyptus and lemon and orange and a few other things in it. And it really helps not only with burning out any type of sickness that you have. You can also use it as a disinfectant, and it's really good for helping your immune system kind of build up a defense, because you're using the natural elements within nature without having to rely on chemical pharmaceuticals that will do something for you and then you don't know what the adverse effects are. At least with natural medicine, you get to have a little bit more control. You don't need as much, and it's provided for you naturally within the environment, which means that you're not reliant on going to a store or having it brought to you by the supply chain. So natural medicine is number 2. Number 3 is know your gear. You want to know your gear because sometimes you have to repurpose your gear. Sometimes your gear may have an issue, or you may be dealing with a circumstance that your gear isn't necessarily suited for, but if you reinforce it or repurpose other parts of your gear to be able to kind of back that up, that becomes very, very important, especially if you're living outside, because we're getting 25 to 55, 65 mile an hour winds in this area. And so when it's 30 degrees at night, what is the wind chill factor? So it's important that you figure out ways to block yourself from the wind. Use your gear to be able to set up barriers to kind of, push the wind around you so that you can at least survive with the gear that you have. It's always important to know your gear, know how it works, what limits you can push it to, and how you can repurpose it. Because there's been many situations where I've had to do that, and that was the difference between surviving and not surviving. Number 4 is pretty obvious, keep warm. It's essential that you keep warm for at least part of your day. For me, I like to keep warm while I'm sleeping. If I sleep warm, it allows my body to be able to repair itself. And when you're out there in the sun during the day, that's kind of like a secondary warm front that you have to deal with. So that actually kind of complements you. If you want to make sure that you stay warm, make sure that you stay warm at night. It's important that you stay warm at night because it's going to play into your overall immune system and whether or not you're going to get a good night's sleep. Because if you sleep cold, because, let's say the Blakens get ripped off of you or something like that, well, what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up, getting a cough, and that cough may lead to something else, and therefore you're going to end up getting sick. Whereas if you make sure that you stay warm at night, it at least ensures that you're helping your immune system stay as healthy as possible. A good offense is a good defense in this situation. So just kind of think of it in that form. When it's hot, it's easy to stay hydrated, okay? But when it's cold, you kind of forget about staying hydrated. And that's kind of one of the problems that I deal with. I mean, when you're hot, you're sweating, you're like, I need to cool down. You're thinking, I want water. But then when it's cold, you're not sweating, you're kind of shivering and stuff like that. Last thing you're thinking is that you want something cold, or that you want to be able to drink water, because you're dealing with the elements. So that means your water is going to be whatever the temperature is outside. And the thing is, you need to remember to stay hydrated, because that is also going to help your body, not only with regulating its temperature, but, just to make sure that your immune system has all the necessary resources. Plus, that also affects your digestive tract. If you get too dehydrated, then you get backed up, and then that can cause other issues later on. So make sure that you stay hydrated, even in cold weather. Number 6 is hot fluids. Okay, you're going to be drinking water, yes, but sometimes you want to drink a hot fluid. Remember that these hot fluids that you're drinking, whether it be hot cocoa, whether it be coffee, whether it be tea, that these are diuretics. The sugar or the tea or the coffee is going to suck water out of you. So therefore, it is going to work against you as far as getting dehydrated. But here's another thing to consider, especially like early in the morning. That's why I like to have my cup of coffee, because I use the cup to warm my hands and to keep my hands warm while I'm out in the weather, while I'm waiting for the sun to come up. Plus, going in my body, it's going to warm up the inside. So again, staying warm is one of the most important things that you can do when it is cold outside. So you're figuring out creative ways to be able to stay warm. And one of those is making sure that you drink hot fluids. But another thing is, that steam that's coming up, you should definitely use it, especially if you're in a dry climate, like a cold, dry climate like Arizona is. You're going to want to kind of like breathe that in, kind of like a humidifier, so that you can get some moisture into your lungs, so that your lungs can breathe and they don't get inflamed from irritation because it gets too cold and dry. So make sure that while you're drinking those hot fluids, that you're also breathing in some of that steam to kind of moisten your lungs as well, especially if you're in a dry climate. Number 7 is know your limits. It's important that you know your limits, because you can only do so much. You only have the gear that will go to a certain extent. Okay, even here, there is a certain point where we would have to start looking at going into some sort of emergency shelter if the weather got too cold or too bad for us to be able to function in. I mean, we'll have to figure out something to do with the livestock. We'll have to figure out something to do with the dogs. I'm sure that they'll end up coming with us, but you want to make sure that you understand your limits. And when you start getting to those limits, that gives you an opportunity to plan and prepare for the inevitable, which is, having to seek emergency shelter under the whatever inclement weather you're dealing with, whether it be the cold weather or whether it be, tropical storms or whatever it may be. You want to know your limits, because if you don't, it could be fatal for you. Number 8 is prepare for extreme weather. Okay, regardless of whether it's hot or whether it's cold or whether you're dealing with storms, you've got to prepare for worst case scenario. You've got to prepare for the extremes. Okay, when you've got a hurricane coming through, you've got to see not only the track, but also prepare for, is it 75 mile an hour winds? Is it 125 mile an hour winds? Is it, how heavy are those winds going to be by the time they get to me? And does that mean that I need to prepare for shelter or shelter in place, or get myself behind some sort of barrier, things like that? These are things that you need to prepare for regardless of the extreme part of the weather. For example, if it all of a sudden went from 60 degrees all the way down to, let's say, -10, well, we're really not suited to get down below zero to begin with. So what are my plans, and what are my extreme weather plans should we all of a sudden get some flash cold that comes in? Because as wacky as the weather has been over the last couple of years, you've got to be prepared for the worst case scenario, because it's not going to happen over a long period of time. It's going to happen for a day or two, and it's going to come in really quick, and it's going to leave really quick. And if you're not prepared for that small little amount of time for the extreme weather, it could be fatal for you. Number 9 is you want to have backup plans. You should always have some sort of backup plan to your backup plan. Okay, so our primary plan is we stay here on the property. Okay, but once it reaches to a certain, since we know our limits, once it reaches down to a certain point, then we start looking or preparing and considering for the extreme weather. But what happens if it comes in the middle of the night? What is my backup plan to that if we don't actually have an opportunity to get to a place that is warm, that will allow us to be able to survive if we're dealing with cold or winter weather? So this is something that you really want to include in your planning, because sometimes you think that you're prepared and then it comes up on you like you were not expecting it, kind of like a black swan event. And if you're not prepared even for the contingencies of the possibilities of different black swan events for yourself, then you are putting yourself, your loved ones, and everybody that you're with in jeopardy. So I mean, that's kind of where we got to the point where we bring the dogs in, we cover the goats up, we do things like that so that we can survive the quick flash of the extreme weather, because we don't have enough time to prepare to get out, because it just came on us so quick. So you should always have a backup plan to your backup plan. And number 10, last but not least, always take the cautions that are given to you. If somebody gives you a warning, take the warning. It doesn't mean that you have to follow through on it. It does not mean that you have to get all Chicken Little, the earth is falling or the sky is falling and all of that. What I'm saying is, if there is the possibility of 125-mile-an-hour winds, if there is a possibility of all of a sudden a flash blizzard, well, don't discount it. Be like, nah, that's never happened. You should take that into consideration, because that will be what you're preparing for as far as your black swan event. What is the worst that these guys are telling you it could be? Expect it to be a little bit worse than that, and then just move forward. So you should always take warnings seriously, even if they don't happen, as long as you're prepared for it and you have some sort of plan in place of, if this really does happen, this is what we'll do if we don't have time to be able to get to shelter or get to this or get to that. So this is helping you, the warnings are helping you develop a plan of action to be able to survive whatever's coming to you. Whether you're staying outside for a whole winter or whether you're dealing with a natural disaster, it's all one and the same. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you like this information and you find value in it, you can leave a tip down in my tip jar, or if you'd like some more behind the scenes content, you should come on over to Patreon. There's different membership tiers depending upon what you like. All of them get you direct access to me. If you haven't subscribed, don't forget to subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video.